have a presentation. Hopefully it doesn't go too far into the weeds, but it sets the framework of what the platform is, why it was created, and why it's kind of necessary to shift the language in the huge way that it was done and what it's based upon. So I'm going to share my screen now and start that. Let's see. Does that show up correctly? I hope.
Yep.
Okay. So my name is Michele Mashburn. I am a disabled person. I've been the county council member of Santa Clara County Green Party from 2020 to 2023. I'm a dedicated activist advocate with over 13 years experience in disability rights and intersectional justice. I'm also a speaker, consultant, and trainer on disability issues, especially primarily disability equity issues, which is not seen as much in the United States. I authored a disability inclusion and equity pledge that was adopted by my county, Santa Clara County. I'm talking the actual city county, the government, and also the city of San Jose with some few minor edits in since the pandemic. Those documents were adopted into the laws of the local area. My work is aimed at achieving true full inclusion and true equity that includes expanded opportunities for people with disabilities through a human rights model. So the disability rights plank, it falls under, is in the social justice and livable community pillars. And this is all outlined on the document. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I think we all know there are laws that exist, and the laws, this is kind of the laws in a word cloud. However, even though these are crucial legal protections, discrimination still exists due to the deeply embedded social attitudes and structural barriers that people with disabilities encounter in our society. In 2023, people with a disability were declared or designated a minority population by that experiences health disparities by the National Institutes of Health. Despite these strides, disabled people still encounter barriers that impede equal opportunity and equitable treatment. I was in a meeting where I talked with other disabled people, and we were talking about whether we were a citizen, full citizen or not in this country. And ultimately, historically, we may have reached the bare level of second-class citizenship in this country, but we're definitely not full citizens yet. And it hasn't been that way even since before the ADA was passed. So some basic statistics: up to 27% of the United States population lives with some type of a disability and experiences access limitations. People with disabilities can have as much as 28% in addition in expenses when they have a family member with a disability or they are disabled. Only 22.5 people of disabled people were employed in 2023 compared to 65.8% of those without disabilities. This statistic is usually those looking for work, so it's not people that are unable to work, it's those looking for work. It's estimated that 42%, and that's probably a low estimate, of homeless individuals in the United States have a disability. And then approximately 85% of college-educated neurodistinct, which is another way of saying neurodiverse or neurodivergent, including autism and other neurotypes that are still deemed atypical in the United States, are either underemployed or unemployed. So when I first started moving more, I'm trying to understand the discrimination and the barriers that I encounter on a regular as a wheelchair user, as a neurodiverse person, as a person with mental health issues, mental health disabilities. I learned about the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And that is, I think Nasim's going to be putting links in chat on some of these things if people are interested in learning more, because this is like really just a very brief overview. But ultimately, it's an international human rights treaty intended to protect the rights and dignity of people with disabilities because of the reality that those rights and dignity were not seen in implementation in the UN policies and procedures. It also serves, and this is the important part, as a major catalyst of shifting people with disabilities from objects of charity and medical treatment to be fixed or cured, and into more of social protections to full and equal members of society with human rights. So that's just an important caveat to kind of remember. Now, I'm going to show two very, very short videos. They're roughly, the first one is on the social model of disability, and it's kind of a spoof, and I just realized I may not have actually done share sound. Let's see, can I still do that? Let's see here. I'm going to reshare. Hopefully that does the share sound now. So the first one's kind of a spoof. The second one is actually from Australian Green. So I'm going to show the first one and then I'll just go right into the second one without much talking.
Imagine a town full of physically impaired people, all wheelchair users. They run everything. There aren't any able-bodied people, so naturally, when they built the town, the community decided it was pointless to have ceilings 10 foot high and doors 7 foot high. So the ceilings were built at 7 foot and the doors at 5 foot. In every way, they designed the place the way they wanted it. One day, a few able-bodied people come to stay. One of the first things they notice is the height of the doors. And the reason they notice is because they keep hitting their heads. They come to stand out by the bruises they carry on their foreheads. Soon, doctors, psychiatrists and social workers all become involved. Committees are formed. Many people are worried about what becomes known as the problem of the able-bodied. Throughout the town, there is a growth of real concern. Specially toughened helmets are handed out, free to the able-bodied, to be worn at all times. Braces are designed which give support and relief, while keeping the able-bodied wearer bent to normal height. Various groups of compassionate wheelchair users get together and form registered charities. Every quarter they have a collection day. Upturned helmets are left in pubs and shops for people to drop their small change into. There is talk of founding special homes. But then one day, it dawns on the able-bodied that there is nothing actually wrong with them, just that society excludes them.
I'm on camera.
Huh?
I'm on camera.
Okay. All right, I'll see you later.
Sorry about that, everybody. Here's the second one.
We need to talk about disability. You might hear people say that disability is caused by barriers in society. But what does that actually mean? Well, think about this. If someone who uses a wheelchair can't get into a building because of some steps, is the barrier caused by the person using a wheelchair or by the design of the building? If a blind person can't read the timetable for a train, what's stopping them from getting the information they need? If a child with learning difficulties is struggling in class, is it the child's responsibility to learn in the way they are taught, or the teacher's responsibility to teach in the way that the child can understand? For years, society has viewed disability as a problem that belongs to the disabled person and said that we should focus on fixing that person's impairment.
The social model of disability says that disability results from the way society is organised, rather than by a person's impairment or difference.
There is no right or wrong way to be. We are all different. We are all unique, diverse individuals.
We need to remove the barriers that stop disabled people from participating in society fully, on an equal basis with everyone else. We need to design buildings so that everyone can access them.
We need to ensure information is accessible to everyone so we can all participate in public life.
And we need to ensure that every child has the opportunity to learn and grow into the best person they can be.
When barriers are removed, disabled people can and will be equal in society,
with control over their own lives.
Not to mention all the other groups who benefit from a more inclusive and accessible society.
It's time to talk about disability differently. It's time to build our places and spaces differently. It's time to change attitudes and realise that we are all different and unique, and that an inclusive society is a better society for everyone.
So kind of moving on, the platform that was drafted was based largely in these principles of social model of disability, as well as pushing us further forward into a human rights model, which I feel is in very much alignment with what the Green Party stands for in the United States and has stood for over the years. So the basic introduction of the platform gives that the Green Party of California supports full civil and human rights of people with disabilities. We acknowledge that disability is an evolving concept shaped by the barriers that exist in our society. We also acknowledge that disability is a natural part of human diversity. We support the framework of the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, interpreted through 4 key principles that then frame the rest of the platform. We also affirm that people with disabilities have the expertise to lead shaping policies, to be the leaders in shaping these policies that directly impact them, and that as a political party, we will seek out and integrate their voices in all new policies, because every part of life impacts most people with disabilities. So it's important to have our voices present, just like it's important to have intersectional voices present, through many of the issues that we cover. There's a framework within the disability rights movement of nothing about us without us. And it's been over 30 years since the Americans with Disabilities Act has been passed. So it's time to shift to nothing without us, which means nothing without those most impacted and most at risk being included in the conversation. The 4 key principles include non-discrimination, accessibility and inclusion, respect and acceptance, as well as opportunity and self-determination. And you can read or possibly have read what's already existing to kind of see some of the more finer details. Ultimately, and this is part of the introduction as well, the Green Party of California respects the inherent dignity, independence, and individual autonomy of people with disabilities, including their right to meet their basic needs and to become integrated into mainstream life within their communities. Ultimately, our hope is to allow people with disabilities to develop to their fullest potential and lead an independent, fulfilling, and productive life. Because just because we have a disability doesn't make us less deserving. And Disabled by Society is Jamie Shields is in the United Kingdom, and he does these graphics that are amazing. If you can, I think that link will be added in as well. But ultimately, my disabilities don't make me less. They don't make me anything else. So with that, on this slide, there is a disability pride flag. This flag has multiple meanings. I can put a link in after I close down the PowerPoint. But my name again is Michele Mashburn. I am an inclusion and disability equity speaker and trainer. And this is my contact information, as well as a page that you can reach out to me to either support my work, as well as, hire me to do trainings or events or other things. And with that, I'm going to stop my share and turn it back over to one of people more aware of the process, because that's a little clunky for me, but I'll turn it over again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michele, for that. We're now going to go through the regular process that we go through. We ask for clarifying questions, which means if there's something about what the proposal is, we'll answer that. After that, we go to concerns and affirmations, and then test for consensus. And if necessary, we'll go to a vote, but hopefully we can, if we reach consensus, that would be better. I guess now we can open up for questions, clarifying questions. And I see Ryan. I hope that's how it's pronounced. I'm doing it right. Go ahead, Ryan.
Great presentation, Michele. I think what you're doing is really important. I just have a minor detail. There's something in the accessibility and inclusion, number 17, stating medical marijuana. Marijuana is legal now, so I don't understand why this needs to be in there. And also, if you need to have something, you should use the word cannabis instead of marijuana. That's all.
Thank you for that. Tariq, can I do a direct response back?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I would say it is still in there because while people with disabilities live in the state of California, the federal law still prohibits those people with disabilities in federal public housing, in other types of scenarios, even on federal public benefits, from utilizing that. If I get caught in, my housing thing with legal cannabis in the state, in this state, I can potentially be evicted. So I think I definitely agree with the tweak to cannabis instead of medical marijuana. I also think the other issue is oftentimes with families with children that have autism and other issues is there's not enough information on how to deliver the dosing safely for both CBD and cannabis, to deliver the dosing safely to facilitate them having a reduction in their symptoms. So I think that's why we decided to include it. But I definitely take the adjustment of cannabis.
Okay, any other clarifying questions? And just to confirm with Peggy, the proposal is to replace the current plank with the new one that's linked to in the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Michelle?
There was one typo in the one linked that I think Nasim has already fixed, but it's on item 21. It should have a C at the beginning of that sentence. It says create instead of create. So
okay. I see a few hands going up now. Nasim, did you change your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that typo and that it's on my list too.
Okay. Next, we'll go to June and then Jane. Go ahead, June, please.
Yeah, I just had a question in reading through it. On number 3, I just was hoping to get a little more information to understand the sentence where it says implement and enforce existing federal and state laws that protect people with disabilities. And then it says apart, and ensure that they do not bear the burden of mandating compliance to laws intended to protect them. I was wondering if you could help explain so I could understand that meaning of that better.
So direct response, that's another really good question and a point of clarification. Currently, the ways almost all of the laws are written, it requires a person with disabilities to actually file a complaint or file a lawsuit. There is no entity that really holds us through the process of doing a complaint process. So it's like all the laws. ADA is a I have to report the violation before the violation is actually even resolved. And as a person who was just employed and didn't have access to a bathroom, that the government bodies actually deemed that as undue burden for my very large employer, it's hard. That burden on me to mitigate that barrier was huge. And there's a lot of reasons why the barrier was there and it wasn't mitigated. I'm not going to go into that, but that's part of what's in this is that even like within capitalism, within our businesses and things like that, I want the government to create programs similar to the ones that have been created for disability access grants so that small businesses can make the modifications to ensure accessibility in their spaces. And we need the government to be more proactive with this instead of relying on people with disabilities to be the ones to bring them forward and to bear that burden primarily alone, because even the legal support has been largely defunded over the last, I'd say, 15 years.
Thank you, Michelle. Jane? You're unmuted. Unmute, Jane.
Okay, there we go. This is not a clarifying question. It's a general question. I recently went in the middle of probably the hottest day of the year to my local community college. And where I had to park to get into the administrative office was at the bottom of a long, steep staircase. And it's hard for me to walk a long distance, let alone in 105 degrees with humidity up around 50. And I walked up those stairs and realized there was so-called disabled parking spots kind of at the bottom of the stairs. And then I looked around. Well, I didn't do it, but I had to go in the office. But when I came back and walked down those long flight of stairs, I noted where the disabled parking was. And at the way over on the edge of the parking lot was the slope for wheelchairs. And it went up a sidewalk, probably 20 feet, and then turned to the right, and then continued up a long, long slope. And I was thinking, okay, maybe someone who has a motorized wheelchair might be able to make it up there. But I couldn't imagine having to push yourself up there. And then if I'm on crutches, which I was at one point a few years ago, and then discovered that the minimum ADA for some of these, well, this is a school, and it happened to be a high school that my experience with. Anyway, if this is the minimum requirement through ADA, I think the access to buildings have to consider other disabilities. People who can't walk long distance or can't walk up a hill without losing their breath and maybe fainting. There's all kinds of disabilities out there. And there are people with temporary disability, like myself, that was on crutches for 4 months. And is there anything in the works to try to figure this out? I'm not even sure how the college could fix it for someone on crutches. That would be, because there's no parking near any of the entrances.
So kind of a direct response, but like really kind of succinct too, is the ADA will never be enough to ensure equal opportunity and equal treatment for people with disabilities, all disabilities. Because you're right, that ramp is way too long. It's not really functional. It's everything else. There's a lot of problems with that. Within the platform, there is a section on universal and inclusive design. And part of the reason why we want these changes to be informed by people with lived experience is because we've experienced this for much longer than anybody else. So that's baked into this policy platform. In the works of disability rights, it's a mess. The ADA was never meant to be the final law. It was a stepping stone into something more universal, something more adopted and accepted by community, which is why I feel the human rights framework is essential and integral to the work that I do. And, let the school contact me and let's seat a panel of disabled people to make solutions. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you both for that. It seems there's no more clarifying questions. We'll go to affirmations and concerns. So please raise your hand if you have any of those. Okay, I see Eric Brooks.
Yeah, just as a member of the platform policy and platform committee, I got to watch this whole process play out, and it was incredibly well staffed with experts working on this plank, and the end product is really excellent, and I wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you, Eric. And I see Nadia and then Nassim.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, Michelle. It was very well put. Also, as a huge community of disabled, all the elderlies that I experienced that, of course, with my parents, and dementia and Alzheimer's and all of that, we're facing more and more because the huge population of aging people that are not being considered at all. And living in California, which is a very advanced, supposedly state, it was very difficult. I discussed this with Michelle a few times to find the right apartments for them. And even the apartments, they all have bathtubs. It's very difficult for them to get in. If they don't have bathtub, they're on the 3rd floor and they have to go up the stairs for 3 floors. So it absolutely doesn't make sense. Whoever designed them, they have no idea about these restrictions that people are facing, and there are no regulation to oversee it and make sure it happens. So thank you again for bringing the attention to all these issues. And as you said, I also have a friend with autistic boy, and he's facing a lot of issues. And they had to move out of California because of lack of support for him. And believe it or not, Texas, which is a Republican state, have a much, much, much better support in their school system for children who needs extra help or different kind of help. Thank you.
Nassim, you're up. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you. I'm here for an affirmation on this whole process and how it went. I know our platform and policy folks, there's a lot of planks. So one of the things that we've discussed in the last 2 GAs, when we've had a lot of their work that we've reviewed and proudly endorsed and approved, is just getting experts to step in and help. And, you know, there's only so many people on platform and they need all of our help. The Greens are doing amazing work on the ground all the time. So I'm here to put a plug in for Michelle. I really appreciate it. I did rope her into doing this. We've talked about it for a long time and she's been wanting to do it. And finally, she had a short little window of time and bandwidth to commit to this. And I'm really grateful and proud. If you are active in any area that you have a passion about, you have information, you have expertise, and you can be considered a domain expert or a follower, please connect to the policy and platform. Pick the plank that you're interested in updating and let them know, and you can start a draft and, you know, get help from other people. So this is how this worked, and I really appreciate it. And I want to put another plug in now that we've passed the bylaws amendment. When the GA agenda goes out, if the R platform planks in their amendments that are there and you're interested in, get involved. We talked about in the last 2 GAs using the SGA listserv to start discussions early. And this was a really good example of getting discussions. There were another activist who contributed to this platform as well. So we need your help. Thank you. And thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Nassim. Are there any other affirmations or concerns? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I heard any concerns. So one final test for consensus. Greg John, go ahead, Greg.
It was accident. I was going to speak afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So it appears that we have Laura Wells. Laura, go ahead.
I just want to confirm that we do have quorum for this consensus process.
Thank you, Laura. Glad you remembered to do that. I didn't. And it seems that we do have consensus. So this plank has been adopted, and we can move on from here.